Our speaker this afternoon is really out there on the front lines as a public official, facing each day the great struggle of helping to make our imperfect world more just. In doing so, she experiences humanity at its weakest and strongest, at its basest and noblest. On an occasion such as this, we are fortunate to hear from someone so deeply involved in society and in trying to advance its highest aspirations. Please welcome our baccalaureate speaker, Martha Coakley, class of 1975.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is my incredible pleasure to be with you here tonight and to help you look upon what's to come tomorrow. But I must say, just before I begin my remarks, that it has been a pleasure to both hear the terrific contemplative readings and particularly to enjoy the music. So thank you, because this is I had said earlier today that I do not recall my own baccalaureate ceremony, and I think that's because I did not go. I hope that's because I did not go. And I'm regretting that, but I am glad that you are here tonight and that I can share this with you. And I also loved coming back to Williams because there are so many great traditions that never change, like no air conditioning in Chapin Hall. And our happy throngs and the brown monster who come and watch. In contemplating some brief remarks to share with you this evening, which is the eve of your graduation, and it is the eve of my 35th reunion from Williams next weekend, I started to think about what I really believe and what I believe in, and how much or whether that has been a constant or a changing North Star. 39 years ago, as I headed to Williams from North Adams, with most of my education at the local parochial school, St. Joseph's School in St. Francis Parish, I do remember my piano teacher cautioning me not to lose my faith at this secular institution about 6 miles down the road on Route 2. I had in many ways led a very parochial life, grown up in North Adams, rarely rubbing elbows, frankly, with anyone but Catholics, and my 2 older sisters attended women's Catholic colleges. 1971, the fall that I entered, was the beginning of huge changes at Williams. For some, the seeds had been sown before that, but we were, as you know, the first class of women to enter for 4 years, to matriculate. And in 1971, it was really kind of the 60s for Williams. Williams always has a little bit of lag time, and so the 60s were hitting Williams when I came. There were more women. There was certainly more racial and ethnic diversity, but certainly not what we see for the class of 2010, and I think that is progress, and it is wonderful to see. And Williams continued to, as it does today, I believe, stake out its place in maintaining tradition while reflecting more of the world that's been changing around it. I joined, when I came here, the Newman Association, named after Cardinal Newman, so that on Sunday I could continue to attend Mass, and with classmates and upperclassmates, we tried to make sense of Catholicism by guitar and Latinless liturgy. Now, about 5 years earlier, in 1966, in North Adams, there was a baby born named Paul Farmer. His Aunt Lucy Farmer, the only girl in a family of 5 children, was my sister Jane's best friend all through grammar and high school. And as they were 4 years older than I was, I treasured the times I got to hang around with Jane and Lucy. So I want you to hold the Paul Farmer thought for a moment. In 1975, when I graduated from Williams, and I do remember my graduation with Barbara Jordan, who intoned, we were inside because it was raining, who intoned, "There is nothing new under the sun," and she was a terrific speaker. But I was interested in going to law school. I had been waitlisted for a few law schools. I headed off for a summer on Martha's Vineyard, cleaning houses and mowing lawns, and I stayed the winter, reapplying for law school. I found that those light, airy days of fun and plenty to do turned to tougher months with harsh weather and severe unemployment on that beautiful island. Starting back in the fall of 1976 for law school, I was more than ready to go back to school, and I must say in retrospect, appreciate the year off, although I did not at the time. And I was particularly interested in becoming a trial lawyer, having grown up watching a lot of Perry Mason. After a few years in private practice, when I graduated in 1979, I wanted to do something that for me would be a little more rewarding, something that would allow me to contribute back for what I felt had been a pretty lucky life so far. And perhaps without quite realizing it at the time, needing to feel of service, to be useful, to have an impact, to make a difference. The ideas of liberation theology that we started to talk about at the Newman Center here in the 70s, and that were part of an emerging Catholic theology, as expressed in the just previous earlier reading, sometimes credited to Archbishop Romero, who was gunned down while he was celebrating Mass in El Salvador in 1980. We talked about that concept that is embedded in that reading, about what we could do and how we could plant the seeds. And at that time, I did not know of or about that young man, Paul Farmer, and so hold that thought again. Since 1986, I've had the privilege and the opportunity to speak before a jury or a judge or settling a case and say, I represent the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I have great pride in doing that, and whether it was an assistant district attorney handling misdemeanors or felony cases, later as the head of our child abuse prosecution unit, I felt that I and my colleagues have tried every day to keep kids safe, to hold accountable those who were child predators, to make sure that those who were victimized had their day in court, and frankly, to make sure that we also protected defendants' rights to make the Constitution work by respecting the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. As Attorney General of Massachusetts, my reach is a little broader, as we handle civil matters also. We go after predatory lenders, environmental polluters, unsafe nursing homes, and unfair violations of civil rights. We play a large role in healthcare and in cost containment here in Massachusetts. And we often do that case by case, advocating for those who have been injured, aggrieved, or treated unfairly. Although my last 2 positions as district attorney and now as attorney general have been elective, my interest in public service and the clinical side of public service, actually doing something, is what brought me to politics. And I see today that the need for good people with integrity, common sense, experience, and dedication in public service has never been greater, because this republic, our Commonwealth and our country, relies upon participation at the highest levels of our best and our brightest, not just as an abstract principle, but as a commitment to each other. But when our ability in our cities and towns, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, on our street, on our college campuses, to have a conversation about where we are going as neighbors and as fellow citizens, even when we disagree, is diminished or impaired, our future is just that much bleaker. Which now brings me to Dr. Paul Farmer. My title today, Mountains Beyond Purple Mountains, is an ephaification, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to say that, an ephaification of the title of Tracy Kidder's book about Paul's work, Mountains Beyond Mountains. And if you haven't read it, I suggest you would enjoy it. Not just in Haiti, but all over the world to decrease infectious disease, particularly tuberculosis and AIDS. Mountains Beyond Mountains describes Paul's upbringing as a Catholic, his commitment to Haiti and Haitians, and his reading of liberation theology. And his reading of the liberation theology work is in part an explanation of his unique, inspiring, and total commitment to his goals. For example, the book describes him walking 7 hours across the island to a remote section, just to reach 2 families for a consult and for medication. He does this on a regular basis. Everything he does is patient-focused, while he also travels to Peru and Russia, devoted to his not-for-profit Partners in Health to try and make a difference for the poorest of the poor, who have no one else. How does one person with great talents come to exert a force on the world? Kidder asks in his book. He says, I think in Farmer's case, the answer lies somewhere in the apparent craziness, the sheer impracticality of half of everything he does, including that 7-mile hike. But Kidder also notes aptly that most of us will never be Paul Farmer, and it is not about imitating what he has done, but finding the way in our own lives that we are inspired to commit to something larger than ourselves that makes the world better and lets us, in fact, live better and more fulfilling lives. There are mountains enough beyond these mountains and this beautiful purple valley. But it is here where you have made friendships, you've tested and disciplined yourselves, I hope, only begun to explore your potential that the journey begins. And while you've learned how to think, perhaps you've also learned a little bit about how to believe. And they're not always the same thing. I recently saw a bumper sticker that said, "Don't believe everything you think." I think it's good advice. Your professors think so. But you can start to think about everything you believe and even question what you believe. And as you move past these mountains, I hope you will rely both on your heads and your hearts. Indeed, Williams is a place that challenges us in what and how we think and believe. But with those challenges comes greater self-knowledge and a greater appreciation of how not only challenging our beliefs, but then acting upon them is a way to make a difference in our own lives and that of others. Every year at a fundraiser for the Germaine Lawrence School for Girls, it's a not-for-profit in Arlington in Middlesex County that deals with some of the toughest teenage girls, many of whom are victims, some of whom are defendants, some of whom are both. I tell this story to those who come to hear about Germaine Lawrence. 2 women were walking on a beach littered with starfish. One of the women would stop now and then and toss a starfish back into the sea. Her companion asked her why, with so many thousands, she couldn't possibly make a difference. The other woman stopped, picked up a starfish, tossed it back into the waters and said, "I made a difference for that one." So we cannot do everything, but we can do something, and we can do it very well. Congratulations on your commencement tomorrow and your interesting, exciting, and committed lives to follow. Thank you.